Tonight, breaking news just hours left. Millions of federal workers told by Elon Musk to list what they've accomplished in the last week by midnight tonight or risk getting fired. And President Trump today suggesting what happens if you don't respond. Also tonight, the frightening moments on a Delta flight filling with smoke, passengers horrified. And tonight here, remembering Roberta Flack. First tonight, millions of government workers facing that midnight deadline to respond to Elon Musk's government-wide email. Employees told to list 5 accomplishments or risk losing their jobs. Tonight, confusion over whether this is mandatory. But President Trump today suggesting what happens if you do not respond. Also tonight, the images coming in here, the Delta flight, smoke filling the cabin, passengers using slides to escape. Tonight, the future of Ukraine and the high-stakes meeting at the White House. President Trump side by side with French President Emmanuel Macron. Macron's warning that peace must not mean a surrender of Ukraine. And our Ian Pannell with President Zelensky.
Would you be willing to give up the presidency if it meant peace for Ukraine?
Zelensky's answer making news tonight. This evening, the new message of caution from the Vatican on Pope Francis, what they're now saying as cardinals and the faithful gather in St. Peter's Square. Back in the U.S., police say the man opening fire inside a hospital, shooting a doctor, a nurse, a custodian, and then shooting several officers when they arrived. Authorities say killing one of them. Tonight here, word now on a motive. The price of eggs soaring tonight, and now Denny's, the newest restaurant, saying they will charge extra for meals with eggs. A new strain of coronavirus discovered in China. What the CDC is now saying about this tonight. And she was the soundtrack to the 70s. Tonight here, tributes to a legend, Roberta Flack.
Killing me softly with this song, killing me softly.
Her poetic grace as a singer and flawless style at the piano.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. We begin tonight with this midnight deadline. Millions of federal workers have just hours left to answer an email. Elon Musk telling the federal workers to list 5 things you did in the last week at work or risk losing your job. Tonight, confusion over whether this is mandatory, but Elon Musk on X saying failure to do so, quote, will be taken as a resignation. And today, President Trump calling the proposal ingenious, saying if people don't respond, they would be semi-fired or fired. ABC's chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce leading us off.
I'll come back to you, okay? I promise.
Tonight, growing backlash after Elon Musk gave more than 2 million federal workers until midnight tonight to send an email listing what they'd done in the last week or lose their jobs. In Belton, Missouri, long lines of people waiting to get into a town meeting for Republican Congressman Mark Alford.
Elon Musk has contracts with the federal government. But he is also, I think, doing an effective job.
Conflict of interest! Show me!
I know there are a lot of people who don't want to see waste, abuse, and fraud weeded out. Some of them here today.
I don't want him in charge of it.
Over the weekend, Musk posting on X all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. Soon after, the Office of Personnel Management emailing workers, please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week. Deadline is this Monday at 11:59 p.m. Then the confusion began. Newly installed FBI Director Kash Patel quickly telling his team the FBI, through the Office of the Director, is in charge of all of our review processes. For now, please pause any responses. At least 3 agencies, including the Justice Department, the State Department, and the Department of Defense, also instructing their employees not to respond to Musk's directive. But other agencies sending the opposite message. The Treasury Department telling its employees you are required to respond before the deadline. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy sending similar signals.
I have no problem with the employees here saying, what did you do last week? And if you can't come up with 5 things that you did, maybe you shouldn't be employed here.
The Department of Health and Human Services sending competing messages to its own workers, first telling them to respond to the email, then 6 hours later telling them not to respond. And tonight telling workers they can respond if they want to, but instructing assume what you write will be read by malign foreign actors and tailor your response accordingly. Still, other agencies insisting the email was optional. The Department of Agriculture telling workers there's no penalty for not responding. Today in the Oval Office, the president himself saying if you don't respond, you're semi-fired or fired.
We have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired.
The president calling Musk's idea ingenious. But tonight, the head of the largest union of federal employees says the workforce is on edge and very frustrated, adding the administration's goal is clear.
They want to confuse the workforce. They want to put fear in the minds of the workforce that they'll just quit.
And now tonight, sources tell us that the Office of Personnel Management is now telling agencies that this directive is voluntary. But we all heard what the president said, that if you don't respond, you will be fired or semi-fired. The bottom line here tonight, there is still a lot of confusion around all of this. And in the meantime, the president is now announcing far-right podcaster Dan Bongino to be the second in command at the FBI. He is a loyal Trump supporter. He stoked conspiracy theories about January 6th, and David has been deeply critical of the FBI.
All right, Mary Bruce leading us off at the White House. Mary, thank you. We turn now to the harrowing Delta flight out of Atlanta, flying to Columbia, South Carolina. They had just taken off when the cabin filled with thick smoke. You can see it right there in the images. The pilots immediately turning back to Atlanta, the passengers rushing to cover their faces, then using slides to escape once they landed. Gio Benitez covers aviation.
Tonight, thick smoke seen filling the cabin of this Delta Airlines flight, passengers covering their noses, the plane forced to return to Atlanta.
Smoke in the cabin and need to plan a return back.
The 25-year-old Boeing 717 bound for Columbia, South Carolina this morning with 99 passengers and crew on board. But just minutes into the flight, the cabin filling with that thick haze. Delta saying the flight crew followed procedures, making an emergency landing. Atlanta Fire Rescue helping to evacuate the plane. Passengers seen going down slides and standing on one of the wings.
When we went out of one of the exits, we were actually on the wing. And we kept saying, well, how are we going to get down? And we had to go back in the plane enduring more smoke and then go to the other exit and then fly down the chute.
And it comes after these incredible images. Over the weekend, an American Airlines flight from New York's JFK escorted by Italian Air Force fighter jets. The plane headed for New Delhi, India, landing in Rome after it was diverted because of a security threat.
The captain came on and said that there was a diversion due to a security issue.
A senior official telling ABC News the flight was rerouted due to a bomb threat received over email. Passengers bussed to the terminal for screening, Italian authorities conducting a security sweep of the aircraft. The threat later found to be non-credible. Meanwhile, David, back in Atlanta on that smoke incident, the FAA says it is investigating and trying to figure out where that smoke came from. David?
Unsettling couple of months for flyers across the country. Gio, thank you again tonight. We do have new reporting this evening, the deadly hostage standoff in Pennsylvania. Police say a man shooting a doctor, a nurse, a custodian at a hospital, and then shooting several officers when they arrived. Authorities say killing one of them. Tonight here, word on a motive. And here's Aaron Katursky.
Tonight, a senior law enforcement official tells ABC News anguish and anger over the recent death of a loved one motivated a deadly attack at this hospital. Police in West York, Pennsylvania say Diogenes Archangel Ortiz burst into the intensive care unit at UPMC Memorial Saturday morning with a semi-automatic handgun, wounding a doctor, a nurse, and a custodian, then zip-tying a staff member, taking her hostage.
Holding her at gunpoint, coming out into the hallway, the officers, left with no recourse, did open fire.
Ortiz killing West York police officer Andrew Duarte and wounding 2 more officers before he was killed by police. Duarte had just turned 30 and was one of only 13 officers on the West York force. His mother, Nancy, telling our affiliate WHTM.
The Lord used him to save the lives of others, even though it took Andrew's life. Which I can't even believe when I say it out loud.
The attack follows the caught-on-camera assassination of healthcare executive Brian Thompson. Alleged killer Luigi Mangione, who was pleaded not guilty, has become a folk hero for some who see the crime as vengeance.
Violence at hospitals is rising, David. In recent years, healthcare workers have come under attack more than any other employee in the private sector. David?
Aaron Katursky tonight. Aaron, thank you. Tonight, the future of Ukraine and the high-stakes meeting at the White House. President Trump side by side with French President Emmanuel Macron. Macron offering some praise for Trump, but warning When it comes to Ukraine, peace must not mean a surrender of Ukraine. President Trump, who has called President Zelensky a dictator, was asked today if Putin is a dictator. How he answered, and our Ian Pannell with President Zelensky in Ukraine tonight.
3 years since Russia launched a massive invasion of Ukraine. Today at the White House, President Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron pressed about their deep divisions when it comes to the future of Ukraine.
I've spoken to President Putin, and my people are dealing with him constantly, and they want to end this war.
With allies in Europe who've been left out of recent negotiations between the US and Russia watching closely, Macron making it clear this war can't end in Russia's favour. Saying peace must not mean a surrender of Ukraine and that peace must allow for Ukrainian sovereignty. The differences extending to Putin too. When pressed, Trump again refusing to call Vladimir Putin a dictator, instead saying he might visit Moscow soon, a trip that would be a huge boost to Putin, who's been isolated from the West since the start of the war.
Mr. President, you called Zelensky a dictator. Would you use the same words regarding Putin?
I don't use those words lightly. I think that we're going to see how it all works out.
Ukrainian President Zelensky, who Trump has called a dictator, under intense pressure from the White House to sign a deal giving the US permission to mine critical minerals and resources inside Ukraine. President Zelensky has stood strong and defiant, fighting for security guarantees Ukraine needs to ensure Russia doesn't invade again, telling me over the weekend he's ready to resign if it means peace.
You're under pressure from Moscow to step aside and Washington to hold elections. Would you be willing to give up the presidency if it meant peace for Ukraine?
Even offering to stand down if it meant membership of NATO, saying, I'll do it immediately without a long conversation about it.
David, there have been large-scale rallies across Europe tonight expressing solidarity with Ukraine. In Paris, the Eiffel Tower lit up in the colours of the Ukrainian flag, highlighting, I think, the very real differences now between the US and its allies on the war. David?
Ian Pannell in Kyiv again tonight for us. Ian, thank you. Tonight, the new message of caution from the Vatican on the health of Pope Francis. His 11th night in the hospital now at 88. What they're now saying about the Pope as cardinals and the faithful gather in St. Peter's Square. Our Marcus Moore at the Vatican tonight.
Tonight, cardinals and the faithful gathering in St. Peter's Square as Pope Francis spends an 11th day in the hospital.
My prayer is thy will be done, really. I don't know what to pray for. I hope he's not suffering.
The Vatican today saying the 88-year-old Pope showed slight improvement but remains in critical condition after suffering a prolonged asthmatic respiratory crisis over the weekend. The Pope requiring both oxygen and blood transfusions to increase his red blood cells and platelet count.
The Mother of the Church.
Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York making headlines suggesting the Pope was near death.
We of the Catholic family and so many of our friends and neighbors find ourselves this morning at the bedside of a dying father, as our Holy Father, Pope Francis, is in very, very fragile health and probably close to death.
On Sunday, doctors said the Pope showed slight signs of decreased kidney function, but insists it's under control as he battles pneumonia in both lungs. The Vatican saying today he's responding well to treatments.
You can't really expect much when you're managing critical patients because every day things can change, sometimes by the hour.
And David, the Vatican also says the Pope returned to some work today, including making his routine call to the parish in Gaza. Still, doctors remain cautious about his prognosis. David.
People around the world pulling for the Pope. Marcus, thank you. Back here in the U.S., the CDC is investigating a listeria outbreak linked to frozen supplemental shakes served to people at long-term care facilities and hospitals. The outbreak has been linked to Lions Ready Care and Cisco Imperial frozen supplemental shakes made by Prairie Farms in Fort Wayne, Indiana. All have been recalled. 38 people from 21 states have been infected with this particular strain of listeria. At least 12 people have now died. When we come back here tonight, what the CDC is now saying after a new strain of coronavirus has now been discovered in China. Also, the price of eggs in the U.S. soaring again, and Denny's now saying some restaurants will be charging extra for meals with eggs. We remember Roberta Flack tonight, how Clint Eastwood helped make her famous. And look at this, the close call, the race to escape a large avalanche, trying to outrun the wall of snow. In a moment here. Tonight, the CDC is tracking this new strain of coronavirus discovered in bats in China. This new strain, discovered by researchers at the Wuhan Institute, they say lab studies show it may have the potential to infect humans. The CDC tonight saying there is currently no reason to believe the virus currently poses a concern to public health, and there are no known human infections as of yet. Back here in the U.S. tonight, bird flu leading to egg prices soaring even more. The average price for a dozen eggs, $4.95 in January, more expensive in some parts of the country, nearly double the cost from a year ago. Customers even paying more this month. And tonight, Denny's now becoming the latest restaurant chain to say it will charge more for meals with eggs. The company says the surcharge will vary from city to city. When we come back here tonight, we remember the man who jumped in to protect Jackie Kennedy. And we celebrate Roberta Flack tonight and the song that Clint Eastwood asked for. To the index of other news, that terrifying close call near Telluride, Colorado. A large avalanche barreling down the mountain. Snowmobilers are racing to escape the wall of snow with just seconds to spare. One snowmobile careening down the mountain without a rider. Everyone survived this. We learned today former Secret Service agent Clint Hill has died. He was assigned to President Kennedy's protection detail the day he was assassinated in Dallas. Agent Hill was seen leaping out of the back of the president's limousine, forcing Jacqueline Kennedy back into her seat, protecting her. He had said he was still haunted by that day. Clint Hill was 93. Longtime sportscaster Trautwig has died. Well known to the Knicks and Rangers fans in New York, the voice of the MSG network for more than 30 years. He covered 16 Olympic Games for ABC, CBS, NBC. Trautwig was 68. When we come back here tonight, the song Clint Eastwood asked for, it won Roberta Flack a Grammy.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir. Sponsored by Claritin, powerful 24-hour non-drowsy allergy relief.
Finally tonight here, she was the soundtrack to the 70s, a piano prodigy, and her voice was flawless. Tonight, remembering Roberta Flack. Roberta Flack's voice was unmistakable.
I'm in my bed with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song.
Her version of Killing Me Softly with His Song, winning 2 Grammys in 1973.
Telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song.
When I first heard the words, killing me softly with his song, just the sound of those words together had such magic for me.
Her smooth vocal style, her poetic, soulful ballads, her grace on the piano. One of the top recording artists of the 1970s.
That's the time I feel like making love to you.
Roberta Flack was born outside Asheville, North Carolina in 1937. She was a classically trained pianist, so gifted she received a full scholarship at 15 years old to Howard University.
First musical memory is Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. And that was a very strong memory for me because that's where my Sunday school superintendent discovered that I had extra musical talent.
She became a school music teacher, and she would perform at night before pursuing her dream.
The transition from the classroom to the stage was a very easy, smooth one for me personally. I'd rather think that the facility was the direct result of my being prepared.
The first time ever I saw your face.
Her version, The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, becoming her first hit after Clint Eastwood asked to use it in his 1971 movie Play Misty for Me. It would go on to win a Grammy. She would win 4 Grammys in all, a 5th Grammy for Lifetime Achievement. Roberta Flack died today at the age of 88, surrounded by family after a battle with ALS.
Love is a song and an honest giving of feelings and emotions. As a performer, if you can connect to that thought, then whatever the song is, it's success. I'm happy to be Roberta Flack. I'm happy to sound like I do. I mean, I'm very satisfied with that. Yeah.
Takes you right back, doesn't it? Her music, timeless, and what gifts she had, the piano and the voice. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir America's most watched newscast.